Hello?
Welcome to the John
Oh,
Gomez Show, Kamil.
hi.
How do you start as an actor?
How did I start as an actor? That's a good question. My parents would send me to acting classes as a kid, basically to keep me busy and out of trouble. And they really believed in um, emphasizing self expression as a kid. And I began to do acting classes just for fun. And what really sort of made me decide this is what I want to do for the rest of my life was when I was about 7 years old. My parents took me to watch a film called Dead Poet Society, starring Robin Williams. And I remember when I watched the show, without giving away too much of the plot, there were very complex issues that a typical 7 year old would not think about, nor would a typical 7 year old be exposed to. And I remember at the end of the movie, they buckled me into the back seat and we were driving home. And I began asking them about these issues and things that happened in the film. And I remember my dad jamming the brakes and both my parents looking to the back seat. And they gave me a look like they thought they brought home the wrong child, simply because it didn't make sense that a 7 year old would be asking such questions. And in that moment, when I had both my parents' attention, I knew, like, wow, I managed to get their attention simply because of a film, simply because about asking about a story. And I thought, this must be it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to be able to be involved in stories that can catch people's attention.
What is
That's how I became an actor.
what is the school? What is the school that you studied to become an actor? What is the school?
Right. So there are a couple places that I studied at. So um, when I was a kid, my parents sent me to a place called Julia Gabriel Center, where I got to study with Julia when she first started the school. Rest her soul, she's since passed on 2 years ago. And uh, when I was throughout school, I would constantly involve myself in drama club activities, that sort of a thing. And knowing that I wanted to do this professionally and full time, I had the good fortune of applying for a place in the Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute in Los Angeles. And the Lee Strasberg Institute is where Angelina Jolie has trained, Scarlett Johansson has trained, Claire Danes, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, James Dean, Paul Newman. Some of the best actors in the world had trained. And I owe a lot to that school for really helping me understand not only the craft of acting, but also what it means to be human. Uh, After I finished at the Lee Strasberg Institute, I did my degree in acting at the American Musical and Dramatic Academy, also in Los Angeles, where I got a degree in theater, and I graduated with a Bachelor of Honors degree, and I was the first one in 50 years to graduate not only the top of my batch, but also with an honors degree. And since then, I've trained here and there as much as I can to keep myself fresh and sharp with training.
What is the first movie that you starred? That you starred? What is the first movie?
The first movie that I what? Sorry,
The first movie that you starred?
that I'm sorry, I don't understand. That I stared at?
Yes, starred. S T A STAR. Stay with
Oh,
me.
that I starred in.
Yes.
Oh, okay. um, uh, so uh, I'm going to talk about the first movie that I was in rather than the first movie I starred in, simply because I think I learned a lot just by doing the little that I did on that film. It was a modern version of Richard III. And in that film, uh, it, it wasn't a great film to begin with. From what I understand, it basically went straight to DVD. You might be able to find copies of it floating around online. And I played a very minor role. I was a driver, so basically, more or less an extra in that film. But what was really fascinating to me was on that film set, the lead of that film was David Carradine, who was the star of Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, and also Danny Trejo, who was the star of Machete, all the Machete movies, and he's been in a lot of Tarantino films. Um and there were a couple other lesser known names, but still pretty big heavyweight actors on that set. Sally Kirkland, who was a Golden Globe winner. They were all big time actors on this film set, and so for me, even though I didn't star in this film, it was very useful for me to be able to like sit and watch some of these actors and how they prepared to play the roles and how relaxed they were on set. And then when it came time to work, they got into the zone and then they were ready to go. So Richard III is the first film I starred in, but more importantly, the first film that I got to see really, really good actors work up close.
Do you work in theater?
Yes, I do.
What is the first theater show in theater do you work?
Uh, I mean, the very, very, very first theater production I ever did in my entire life is when I graduated from kindergarten, and I was a little bear in the bears look over the mountain to see what they can see. That is the first ever theater production I've ever done. Um, but I would say that the first theater production that left a very, very deep impression on me was a theater production called The Serpent. And the author of that play is Jean Claude Van Italy. Uh, and when we did it, it was in Los Angeles, and it was really well attended. It was really, really positively reviewed. It was a kind of play that I have never experienced before and haven't really experienced since then because it was very, very physical in terms of the work that we did. It was all about um, the origin of sin and uh, um, um, the origin of sin and the origin of evil in man and how things work in cycles. So even though it may have started in biblical times, sin and evil always show their head in other aspects of history. Um, so The Serpent is maybe the first theatrical production that I was extremely proud of.
You're not only an actor, you're also an writer and director.
That's right.
How many how many films or theater show do you write and direct?
Uh, at this point, easily over 100.
Wow. What is HCAC?
So HCAC stands for Haque Center of Acting and Creativity. It is Singapore's first professional acting studio for everyone. And when I mean everyone, I mean that there already exist avenues with which you can train in Singapore, but typically they are very long-term diploma or degree type programs. And so this is the first acting studio in Singapore that anyone can sort of take part in. Doesn't matter what your age is, what your objective is, what your experience is. Maybe you used to act as a kid and then you got a real job and then now you want to be creative again and you don't have the time or the money to be able to do a diploma or degree, then that's why you can come to me. And at HCAC, we've been open for more than 7.5 years. And in this time, we have trained professional actors like Henry Golding, who was the star of Crazy Rich Asians, to the bulk of my community, which are, I call them creative double lifers. And a creative double lifer is someone who is a lawyer, doctor, banker, engineer, entrepreneur, accountant, you name it, but they also desire to have a creative second life where they can express themselves artistically. And so a lot of these people come to my teachers and I after office hours or on weekends to learn the tools and skills of the performing arts, so that they can free their talent, so that they can express themselves fully. And many of them go on to star in films, TV shows, commercials, radio, you name it, theater. Uh, and so the school exists to help people be more active members artistically and more active human beings, more empathetic and sensitive human beings, simply by democratizing art education for everyone.
What is the difference of acting and directing?
Uh, the difference between acting and directing is, well, there's many differences.
Yes,
The difference between, as an actor, if I could boil it down into one simple thing, my job when I'm on set is to come up with strong, consistent, and justified choices. By strong choices, meaning there are predictable things that I have to do, but strong also means coming up with something unpredictable, something interesting, a bit of a surprise, something that always leaves the audience going, "Whoa, I did not expect you to do that." So strong choices. Consistent, meaning that there is a through line with everything that I do. That I'm not just doing it once, but there's a consistency with everything that I do, and that consistency comes from training. That consistency comes from self awareness and sensitivity to your scene partners. And justified, meaning if a director asks me, "Hey, Kamil, so why did you make that choice?" I can say, "Hey, this is why I made that choice." So we can have an intelligent discussion, and then the director knows how to push me further or direct me in another way. So strong, consistent, justified choices. Now, as a director, my job is basically to come up with two things. And the two things are the whys and hows of things. So if I'm working with a bunch of actors, I help them discover, why are you doing what you're doing? Now that we know why you're doing what you're doing and why you are saying what you are saying, now let's figure out what is the best way to share how you explore the why, and be it verbally or physically. Ultimately, at the end of the day, whether you're acting or directing, I think two things are true. One is your attitude will take you a lot further than your talent, and also don't hurt yourself, don't hurt other people, and don't be an asshole. And if you remember those things, I think you've got a good shot of having a sustainable career, either as an actor or a director.
this is the last question.
Sure.
What is your advice to our listeners that want to become an actor? What is your advice to them?
So the advice to anyone wanting to be an actor is this. I think there may be a lot of misconceptions as to what acting is. Perhaps that many people associate acting with being able to cry on cue or being able to memorize some lines, or being emotional. And really, acting is so much more than that. I mean, the basic definition of acting is behaving truthfully under imaginary circumstances. And the fundamental there is behaving truthfully, meaning being comfortable telling the truth, being authentic, which means, first and foremost, any actor out there must be comfortable with themselves. Who am I? And understanding the full breadth and depth of who I am before I can even begin to play other characters, which means a lot of digging and understanding what can my body do, what does my mind think, what does my soul feel about things. And once you begin to know who you are as a person, then train as much as you can. Whether you're training by yourself, whether you're reading books, whether you're watching your favorite films or TV shows and trying to understand, I wonder why Christian Bale does what he does. I wonder why Meryl Streep does what she does. And then steal from the best, steal from the best, and steal from the best. Read scripts, watch movies, watch TV shows, go to a class, figure out what makes some of your favorite actors as good as they are, and then maybe at the start learn to copy what they do so that you have a sense of a foundation of training. And the third thing, and there's of course many things, but the third thing is find a community that understand what you're trying to do, that can maybe support what you do, because the craft of acting and the profession of acting, at the end of the day, can and is a very, very tough and a very, very lonely profession. And it's truthfully not the most financially rewarding career. So then ask yourself, if you are in it for the money, you're probably better off doing something else. And number two, if at the end of the day you wake up in the morning and you're not dragging yourself to the next film rehearsal or theater rehearsal or TV rehearsal, then you're in a good space. But the reality is that your family really won't understand what you do. Your friends won't understand what you do. Sometimes even your fellow colleagues in the acting industry won't understand what you do. And statistically, you will face more rejection than you will acceptance. Be it in auditions, be it in your own head, you're constantly going to be self rejecting. So, how do you be comfortable with so much rejection and a lot of downtime by yourself, thinking for yourself? And if you don't have healthy habits, physically, mentally, spiritually, and psychologically, it can be very, 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 very painful and very, very tough. So it's really not for the faint of heart. But I will say this is, if you train, if you do the work by yourself, if you can find a community, there really potentially is nothing more rewarding other than maybe finding the cure for cancer or finding the cure for COVID. There are very few things that are as rewarding as literally going and breathing something into life and having that something that's you breathe life into affect other people.
Thank you for guesting to my podcast, Camille.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye bye.